So here we go. So this first string here that I've just taken off is currently caught on the guitar's body here. You just kind of force that through, and there you go, there's the first string off. So what we have here is the low B kind of off, and what I do is when I'm taking the strings off, I don't actually use the wire cutters, mainly because I have two cats and I don't want them getting bits of strings stuck in their little paws. So yeah, I just try and keep the strings intact as much as I can. Oh, and there it goes there, and try and keep it that way. So let's take all the strings off now. Get rid of this one here. In fact, I'm going to use the string winders just to get these off nice and quickly. So, just to finish them off. If anyone has any questions whilst I'm going about this, feel free to ask. And I'll try my best to answer them. So, and what's going to happen is the neck's naturally going to kind of relax a bit, right? So what we don't want is the neck to all of a sudden bow back, because that could damage the neck or the guitar itself. So I'm just taking my time, making sure that the strings are around about the same tension as I'm taking them off. So just feeding through each string. And the main thing is with anything on guitar, when it comes to guitar maintenance, is check out like the Fender YouTube channel is pretty good, I found, and other various YouTube channels where they actually build guitars and stuff like that. They're more than happy to kind of go through various different things. And I also find just doing a bit of reading as well and trying to find, like, you know, knowing simple things like is there a difference between a tremolo bridge and a hardtail bridge? Well, yes, there is, of course there is. Stuff like that. So you know when you're buying a guitar what sort of maintenance you can expect and stuff like that. I know from experience that a Floyd Rose locking up type bridge is a lot harder to maintain than a hardtail. But there again, you know, you get the Dimebag squeal from having a floating bridge, so pluses and minuses there, I guess. Just taking them all off, and then I'm going to give the guitar a polish. And when I give the guitar a polish, I kind of talk about that a little bit. What to do and what not to do when you're doing that. Absolutely does that. The dropping and the rising, tuning in a Floyd Rose is very difficult to maintain. That you always are going to have issues when using a guitar with Floyd Rose when going to and from different tunings. And all four strings should just come through nicely. And then we are done on the first bit. So I tend to be quite firm with my guitar, just because, to me, I know a few people are into naming the guitars and treating them like second loves and stuff like that. Me, not so much. I see my guitars as workhorses because that's what I use them for. So there's no strings on this guitar now. So next thing to do is clean it. One thing to be aware of, if you've got a hardtail bridge, so like the guitar here, or a Les Paul, or a D&ML or something similar, is that you need to be aware just of the bridge possibly coming off like this. That happened to me a couple of times, and I had to kind of then work out which way my bridge goes around. But just be aware that normally the screws there are normally facing up. So, just going to pop that to one side. Now I'm going to give my guitar a clean. One thing to note about cleaning your guitar is don't use furniture polish or any other commercial polishes, because the reason for that being is it can damage or destroy the finish on your guitar, and you don't want that, especially if you pay out some of the money you can pay out for some very nice finishes on things like a PRS or something like that. I mean, you definitely don't want to use polish on a PRS. So with that in mind, then I use this Jim Dunlop polish again, Formula 65. I find for me it does the job. I know you can get one specifically for your fretboard and stuff like that. My funds, shall we say, are a bit limited when it comes to the old guitar polish. So you know, let's just kind of stick with this one for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start by spraying the body. You don't need a lot. I tend to use one roundabout where the strings come through, here, and then one either side. And then I make sure that as I'm cleaning, just to be nice and firm with it, and the polish is starting to come up quite nicely and get rid of any dust. And the reason I keep my guitar clean, other than the fact that, you know, it looks good, is that, you know, and this guitar, in my opinion, I love the finish, I love the black on it. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it's a shame when it gets all dusty, especially matte black. Matte black is a pain in the arse when it tracks dust and stuff like that. So, you know, just try and keep your guitar nice and clean. And plus, it seems like, especially the fretboard, it'll be easier to play because then you've not got all that horrible dead skin and dust and other things that can build up. Lemon juice. There is actually a version of Formula 65 that does have lemon in it that people do use for their fretboard, so you're pretty close there, Daz. On top of that, fast fret I have here as well. I only really use that if the strings are really old and stuff like that. Using them on new strings is something I don't really do, to be honest. So, there's the body done. Not much point in cleaning the back, but I'll do it anyway. Similar sort of thing, just a few squirts, you don't need a lot. And then just be nice and firm, just make sure that the shine comes up, like so. And there we go. Right, so lastly is the fretboard. Once again, just a few sprays on the fretboard, just to keep it nice and clean. This is also a chance for you to kind of look at your fretboard and see if there's any discrepancies in it. See if there's any frets that are rising too low, rising too high, sorry, or if there's some that have been worn away over time. I mean, if you play a lot in a certain key, you may find that where that key is, so for A on the 5th fret, for example, that your frets may end up getting a bit worn and stuff from you bending and stuff like that, especially if you're more of a bluesy player and do a lot of those semitone bends to the flat and 5th and stuff like that. You may find that certain areas on your guitar that are just catching and stuff like that. So I've just given this a good wipe now. There's no real discrepancies in my fretboard. I mean, this guitar's fairly new. I think I got it about 18 months to 2 years ago, something like that. So, you know, it doesn't need a refret or anything drastic like that. So now I'm just going to pop the guitar down a second. I'm going to talk about a little bit about the best way to start restringing it. Now, what you want to do is make sure you know where your strings are at all times when you're restringing. So, and try and keep them together because, you know, you don't want to waste time looking for strings and stuff like that. So, what you want to make sure as well is when you open the strings up, I mean, normally with companies like D'Addario and Dunlop and stuff like that, their strings always come out quite nicely of the pack. But when you take the strings out, as I'm doing right now, just have a little look to see if there's any rust or anything on the strings. That normally means that they've been in the shop, or in my case, I got these on Amazon or in the factory for a while, and then as a result, they may end up coming rusted and stuff like that. If that happens, contact the seller and let them know because they shouldn't be selling you strings that are in that condition. So, how do you tell the strings apart? Well, D'Addario have this really nice guide on the back here on the packs of all their strings. And it's actually colour-coded, which I think is great, which just makes it that little bit easier to tell them apart. So, we've now got to find the copper and the brass one for our low B, because this is a 7-string. So, let me just find that. So, there's the copper one. There's the brass one. Nope. There's the red one. So, that's the A string. So, I've just got to untangle them, that's fine. So, with that in mind then, let's actually get putting the strings on. And there we go, those two have come out, but that's not such a big deal. So, brass and copper. I mean, the other thing is as well, okay, you can see the thickness difference between the strings also. So, if your set of strings is by another company and the result isn't colour-coded, then you'll be able to tell the difference just by the thickness. So, let's get this first string on. Now, one thing to note is that normally I put my 7th string in B flat. So, that would be from lowest string to highest string. it would be B flat, obviously, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B flat, and D flat. So that's the tuning that I'm using on my sewing string. But for today, I'm just going to put it into standard so it makes it that little bit easier for everyone watching. Thank you to anyone who has liked and watching, commented. This is great. This is my first attempt at doing this, so you know, it's nice that at least a few people are interacting. That's fantastic. So I'm just going to pop the bridge back on, and it's just slotted in quite nicely on those two pegs there. So you know, it should just slot in back. Sometimes with cheaper models, you get you maybe have a bit of trouble getting it back on. If you do, take it to a guitar luthier. That's the best bet. Don't try and kind of do it yourself, because then what you may find is that you know, that a small adjustment can mess up the entire guitar, and you obviously don't want that. So I'm just going to unwrap this low B here, slowly but surely. It's just going to come out nice and straight, and there's not a lot of flexibility in this one because it's the lowest string and therefore it's the thickest. So I'm just going to feed this through. I'm just going to place my finger as well on the bridge so it doesn't go anywhere as I tilt the guitar forward. And I'm just going to feed the string through slowly but surely. Now this can be a bit tricky. So what you do is you just kind of hold the guitar up to sunlight so you can see through the hole, and then it's a little bit easier to thread the string through, he says. So what tends to happen is it's getting caught on where they put the peg through the guitar to try and save costs and all the rest of it. So just, oh, there we go, and it's coming through quite nicely. Just, oh, almost. Just as a quick point, I'm just going to pop this down for a second. There we go. There we go. If it fell off, I might make my way onto a fails YouTube video, but there you go. Right, let me just grab my Strat a second. So my Strat, you know, I love the sound of a Strat. I find it essential. You've obviously got the different floating bridge here. This is more similar to like your Floyd Roses and stuff like that. What you want to do is if you're feeding the string through, you want to just make sure that it doesn't get caught on the saddles here. And these are a bit more movable and stuff than the ones on the hardtail bridges. So don't worry too much if this one's a bit more difficult. But once again, just bear in mind that you can just move them and adjust them to line up with the strings a little bit better if you need to. So let's move on now in regards to putting this first string on. So what you want to do is bring the string up and make sure that it's sitting at the knot in the top here and at the saddle as much as possible at the bottom here. Right? It's a bit difficult now because the guitar string is not tightened at all, but let's solve that problem. So what I do is I bring the string through and I tighten it as much as I can. Obviously, once again, it's not going to be very tight because of it being so loose, but we're going to solve that soon. Now, in terms of how much wind I put on it, what I do is I actually measure it to the next tuning peg. So in this case, it would be from where the B tuning peg is here to where the E is here. And that's about the length that you want. And then you just bring it back, and maybe a little bit more, depending. And then going back to a chart, my chart tells me to tighten it, I move it away from myself like that. And the string's starting to take shape. Now, the mistake some people make is they use a string winder straight away, and then they don't get a very good wraparound on the tuning peg. What I try and do is actually make sure that my tuning peg is naturally taking to the shape of the string, and that the string on each wind is sitting under itself. I'll show you that in a bit more detail in a second. So let me just move it. And like anything else that's a bit finicky, it just takes some time and patience. So, in a second, I'll have the wind on it quite nicely. And I'll just bring it to the camera in a second. So, that's still kind of loose, but it shows you kind of what I mean. So here, just bring it that little bit closer. So if you can just see this here, that the string is starting to sit under where I've started the wind. That's ideal. That's where about you want to be. So once I've got a couple of winds on it, and it's starting to feel tighter, and it's starting to now sit nicely on the nut and the saddle, this is a good start. And it's obviously going to be nowhere near in tune, but so this is the point you want to actually plug it into a tuner and consider using a string winder. So the tuner's on, just need to find a pick. Try if you can as well, and I know this is a small point, but try and use the pick that you would normally, because then it decides, you know, just how hard or soft you would normally pick. So let me just play the string. So it's taking quite nicely, and I'll turn the volume up. So it still sounds a little bit kind of thin. Just turn up the volume slightly. So, and it's taken to the tuning there. So, and then what you want to do is either use your fingers, or you know, if you think your fingers are maybe a bit weak for it, use like a screwdriver or something like that, just to lightly run your string on, run your handle on, and just give the string a stretch and let go. It will then go out of tune and loosen, but then you just tune it back up again. What you're trying to do is stretch the string out a bit to then make the tuning settle, like so. And then once you've done that, and you think that your string's starting to settle, just bear with me 2 seconds. There we go. Just then, this is where your wire cutters come in. Just go in and try and cut it as close as you can to the tuning peg. I've kind of ended it at an awkward angle there, but never mind. Just try and get it as close as you can. And it's probably dropped again in tuning there because of lack of tension coming from the back of the string now. So just tune it up again. And slowly bring it up. There you go. So, so as you play it, it's going to go out of tune, but then just give it another stretch so that it settles out a little bit more. And there we go, there's our first string done. So I'm just going to turn the tuner off. I'm going to find our next string, which, where's my handy guy gone? There we go. So brass is the next one, which is the low E. So this is where you guys with 6 strings start pricking your ears up a bit, because now we're done with the 7th. So here we go again. So same thing as before, nice and simple now. And you just want to feed it through, and remember, patience is the key. Yeah, nothing else. And there you go, nice and easy this time. So I'm going to do the exact same thing I did with low B. So same thing as before, I'm going to the next tuning peg and dropping it down, and then creating a wind on it. And the thinner the string, the easier it's going to take to the winding. That's one thing I will say, that it will naturally just bend a bit better. The high E string can be a bit of a pain in the butt, but because it's so thin that it's more flexible, then as a result, it's going to move that little bit more. But your low E to about your B string, and that's your high B string if you're a 7-string player like myself, is going to be a similar sort of job. So here we go, just winding it round now. There we go, so it's starting to take quite nicely as I'm wrapping around, and it's actually sitting quite nicely in the nut there now already, and that's good. And I just need to check it, the saddle at the bottom here, and just keep on winding. So now's the bit where I'm going to bring in my string winder. Just get a, just so I can at least get it to something resembling a note. It doesn't. At the minute, it doesn't matter what note it is, as long as you know, you're getting something that sounds like you're in the right ballpark for now. So, like that here. So I'm going to tune this up to low E. And it's still going to sound a little bit bright because these are new strings once again. So same as before, just running my hand along the fretboard, along the string here, just to stretch it out a little bit. And then I'll play again. Naturally, it's gone out of tune again. So once again, you just tune it back up, like so. There we go. So there's the first two strings done. Same deal as before. Just snap it off as close to the tuning peg as you can, because any excess bits means that when you come to either maybe getting someone else to restring it, or you're tuning it, or you maybe need to make adjustments to your tuning pegs, what you don't want to do is have these little bits of metal that's sticking out here to catch you on your finger, because believe me, it hurts. So just try to be aware of that as you're kind of as you're restringing and as you're maintaining your guitar and all the rest of it. So, now, one thing I will say as well, with a restrung guitar, you should try and leave it in the room that you're normally playing overnight once it's restrung. The reason for that is the guitar should have a chance to get used to the temperature of the room and to try and adjust as possible, because, you know, with wood contracting and restricting and expanding was the word I was looking for, in different temperatures, it then means that your restring, once you, say if you get a restring from a guitar store and you pick it up on the same day, you may find that there are issues there that you didn't have before. So just be aware of that, that it's an idea, if you can, to just leave your guitar overnight. And I know it's tempting once you've got a new set of strings to play your guitar straight away, and I've done that myself in the past, but I found myself disappointed as a result. So just try and be aware of that. So let's do the A string now. So the issue you have now with the A string is that there's no tuning peg after it. I mean, this is a bit different on like a Strat style guitar or a Tele, or like a Jackson Randy Rhodes, where you have other tuning pegs on one side. This isn't the case for ones like the 7 string that I've got here, or a Gibson Les Paul or an ML or something similar, where you have the tuning pegs on either side. So we do the same as before in regards to bringing the string up to the tuning peg. Just bring it through there, and once again it's going to sit nicely in the saddle, hopefully. So what I do to measure this one is I just take it to the edge of the headstock, because the edge of the headstock's a similar distance from tuning peg to tuning peg. And yeah, with a headstock like this where it's got a dip in, getting the range can be quite difficult. So if you go a bit further, you can do, and just bring it back like that, and put your bend in to make sure that the string's going to take, and then once again same deal as before. So it gets fairly self-explanatory from this point on, because, you know, once you've done one, it doesn't actually change that much from string to string. Just wrapping around now. Also, one thing to make a note of as well, if you have a guitar where you want to restring it, but say if you're playing in something like drop C or drop B or drop A, if you're feeling like a gent band, try and string it in that tuning. Yeah, don't tune it to standard then tune down, because ideally those of you with more than one guitar like myself want to keep those guitars in those tunings. That's the reason why I do have more than one guitar, just because whenever I put a guitar in a certain tuning, I like to try and keep it in that tuning as much as possible, just so that it doesn't need to constantly change. And once again, you maybe come across any issues that you don't want. So here is my A string. Let me just tune it up. There we go. Once again, nice and bright. So we do the same thing. And what you want to do at this point as well is, when you do one string, feel free to take more than one and run your hand along it, just so that the strings can, you know, kind of interact with one another, and the tension is spaced out between them that way. So, and once again, this is going to drop the tuning, and it's going to go out of tune, but you just do the same thing. So those are the top 3 strings, or the bottom 3 strings in terms of pitch. Done. Let me just take this bit off here. So, one thing that some people get confused with at this point is where to put the next string. And I know this, those of you that are a bit more experienced, you know, and maybe sat there thinking, what the hell is he on about? It's just being aware of that not everyone watching this, well, there's not many people watching this, but not everyone watching this is going to be, you know, as well versed as either myself or you. So it's just being aware that those among you that kind of are a bit more new, don't worry about it. You know, everyone's a beginner to start with. So the black one's next for my 4 string from a D string. So there we go. Just leave that one there. So I'm just going to do the same thing with this one. So in regards to where to put the next string then, just feed it through the back of the guitar. It's gotten caught again, so just bear with me while I bring it up to sunlight. Remember, you can use the light to look through your guitar to feed the string through like that. There you go. So it's nice and taut now. So similar thing as before. Just turn that off so that we don't get any nasty sounds. And I'm just going to feed it through nice and taut. So in regards to where you put your next string then, on a guitar like this, where once again you have the tuning pegs on either side, you start from the tuning peg that's across from the one you finished on. So in this case we finished on this one here for our A string, so we're starting on this one here for our D. And then to tighten it, we actually bring these ones towards us. Like that. So, and when I say towards us, I mean as if we were playing like that, like you do normally, and you're turning it clockwise like that. And once again, it should take quite nicely to the shape. And you should try and make sure that the string sits under where you put your first wind and where the string goes through. This helps with tuning stability and stuff like this. And it's these finer details that you should look out for, yeah? It's that you should try and kind of consider whenever you're doing it. Up. Right. Bear with me 2 seconds. I've just put my strap under the string. That was clever. Yeah, you definitely don't want to do that. So bring it up now. And it's this point where I'm normally going, please God, don't break. And if you do get a string break to begin with, if this is your first time restringing or anything like that, don't worry about it. Let me just carry on. So, from our D string here, once again, it's fairly bright sounding, so let's fix that once again by just running your hand. And it's going to get a little bit more difficult now because the strings are really trying to take to the tuning and, you know, becoming more tense as a result. But already my B, low E and A strings are already sounding about where I like them, so that's great. So there we go. So it's still a little bit bright for my liking, but it's doing the job, so I can't complain. So, same as before, just snipping off the end here, like so. Now, I made a slight mistake with my D string there, in that I didn't leave enough wind around it, really. It will do the job, but still, I like it so that, as you can see, I have a few windings on my first 3 strings there. There we go, that's better. So if you can, you want to try and do 2 or 3 windings around each one. Like I said, the D string, that'll do the job, but it's not ideal. So, yeah, as I say, stuff happens. Right, next string then. Is, what colour are we on? We're on green. and that would be this one here. Very good. So now we're getting onto the thinner strings. The issue with thinner strings is because they are thinner, they tend to not take as well to the winding, so you may need to put a bit of a firm grip on them. So let me just show you that. So I'll take my G string, put it through here. Once again, if I can, just use the light there to feed it through, like so. So now we're back to using our tuning pegs as a measurer, right? So I'm going to bring it forward a bit. So then my G string is going to sit nicely in my knot like that, and it should be about as taut as I can get it. So I'm going to use, let me just turn the amp off. I'm going to use the tuning peg above it to measure and to bring it back. Maybe a little bit further so I can get a bit more of a winding on it. And already I can feel that the string's taken quite nicely to the tuning peg, and it's naturally just starting to create a curve in it that's going to wrap around quite nicely. There we go. So it's got a degree of flexibility there, that's good, and it's taken nicely to the shape. So once it's gone around a few times, I'll then use the string winder to quickly go around it. Apologies once again to everyone for the connection issues such as and such, but you know, first time for everything. So yeah, there's a bit of a greater degree of flexibility here, but it's just all about taking your time and just being patient. And what I'm actually doing is I'm holding the string just in front of the tuning peg with my thumb, just to make sure that the string is naturally going to go forward into the peg. That's already feeling pretty good. So, tune it back up again. Let's play this G string. Already, my guitar is now a lot easier to tune. So it's already getting there in terms of the tuning and stuff like that, which is great. I mean, beginner guitars out there, you may have a bit more trouble in terms of actually the strings taking to a tuning. Just stretch your strings out that little bit more just to make sure that it settles a bit more, and then as a result your tuning will sound much better. So let's move on to the next string now, which is, where's my colour guide? Purple. So once again I'll kind of unravel these two together so that they're both they're both in the same place. This is why I normally work with a script, guys. So let me just quickly, there we go, and they're starting to unravel, and they'll spring out like that. Yep. So purple, which is this one here. So we're on our B string now. Just bring this through here like that, using the sunlight again to kind of see my way through. I mean, the good thing about these thinner strings is they can be a little bit easier to get through the gap. As such. Oh, there we go. I can feel it taking shape now, and it's come out the other end. Ah! Once again, you don't want to do that. There we go. I'll do point towards the floor this time, so it definitely isn't going to jump out at me. There we go. So once again, I'm using the next tuning peg as my measuring. There we go. Another thing that I haven't mentioned before actually is that when you're feeding the string through, try and point it upwards. So try and make sure that the hole in the tuning peg is pointing upwards, so that when you feed the string through, it's going upwards quite easily. Once again, this helps with tuning stability and stuff like that. Right, so there we are, taking it to the next tuning peg. I'm going to do this one slightly further because I like my B and my E to have a little bit more line to them. And then, same deal as before, turning it clockwise. And you want a similar amount of lines than you've got on the others. Yeah. As much as you shouldn't try to underwind it, you then shouldn't overwind it. You shouldn't have like too much of the string on the tuning peg, because then it's just, you know, a waste of space really. And on top of that, what you may find is tuning it flat, so trying to loosen the strings may be a bit more difficult. Once again, let my string take shape as I'm winding it up there. And we are almost there. Right. So, last string now. And you can hear it going up in semitones as I'm So let me just give the newest three strings a stretch. So that's the D, the G and the B string just along there. There we go. And I'm just going to tune it up again. There we go, almost there now then. So we're on a last string, which is a high E. So if I played a sixth string, I would be done at this point, but rather sillily of me, I decided to play 7. But there we go. Just a little bit hanging off there. Just trying to get as much of it as I can off. That will do for now. So, last string now then, which is the high E. The high E one can be a little bit trickier just because of how thin it is, but on the whole it's about the same as your B string, so don't worry too much about that. So let me just have a look through, string through. So same deal as before, the string comes out, it's probably so thin you can barely see this one, but here we go. Let's give it a go. Drop the guitar through. Once again, the string's pointing upwards towards the ceiling here. Right. I'm just going to take the string, put it in the saddle in the nut at the top where the headstock joins the neck, and try and pitch it about here. And there we go. What's going to start to happen is the string takes shape round the tuning peg once again. And that's about all there is to the actual restringing. In a second, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and set it up a bit more as well. The high E is a little bit more tricky. A string winder isn't essential to obviously restringing, but it makes your life a little bit easier. I mean, the string winders string winders. Cost around about £2, I think I got this for. And that was a long time ago. So don't worry, you know, about picking one up, but you know, it only costs a couple of quid. Costs, as they say, the price of half a pint. So if you're on a night out and can spare half a pint to get yourself a string winder, it's a pretty easy thing to do. I know you can get string winders that kind of fit on drills and stuff like that. I think that's a bit extreme, but you know, each to their own, as they say. There we go. Just getting it under the string now. So there we go, it's got a few lines in it. I should hopefully let go of the string now, yep. And it's going to stay there. String winder again. Just finish your rip. Cool, and we are almost there. So one last tune up everything and one last stretch. Just gonna run my hand under the top 3 strings. Make sure that it's nice and stretched out, that they're going to hold their tuning. Once again, the tuning is going to drop out a little bit, but as I said before, that's absolutely fine. Play a G chord now, should hopefully. Now an E minor. I always just play a few open chords after I finish restringing, as that's going to tell me where there's any discrepancies. And also another thing I like to do is just play a few of the frets. Just to see if there's going to be any dead spots or any flat notes or anything like that. Some people do this on each string whilst they do it and then adjust it as they go along. I don't. I just tend to find that once all 6 strings are on is the best way to do. This is also a pretty good exercise actually for those of you that are more interested in the actual playing side of things. All I'm doing is using my first to my 4th finger and playing each individual fret. Finally low B. Good, so that means that it's been restrung quite nicely. I'm getting no dead notes. Now, last thing I'm going to do now is just adjust what's this word I'm looking for? Intonation. The intonation a little bit, because if I just tune up the strings first and then I play the same string on 12th fret, ideally it should ring the same note, because that's your octave. And the best thing to do is just to play each one with a tuner, and that's a little bit out. So let's adjust the intonation slightly. So you need a flathead screwdriver for this. I'll also cut off that spare bit on the high E there, like so. Let me just grab a flathead screwdriver. Flathead. So here we have a flathead screwdriver. I'm just going to use that to adjust the intonation. So, you adjust the intonation by these screws at the bottom here that run across the bottom of your bridge there. You just adjust the intonation by either loosening or tightening those, the same way you would to adjust the intonation when you're playing an open string. So that is... going to choose. And intonation is the key when it comes to finishing up restring. You also want to make sure that your open string is still in tune. And it's getting better, it's getting there. And we just finish up with the intonation on this and then we'll finish for today. Because then all I'm doing is setting the intonation up on the others and it's not terribly exciting. And there we go. So, once again, play it with a pick, tune it up, play the 12th fret. So, there we go. Right, we will finish up there for today. Thanks to those of you who gave this a look. I know it wasn't exactly professional, but like I said, this is my first time doing this. Today was more just a test to see how it went, more than anything. So, thanks to all of you that gave this a look and interacted in the comments and all the rest of it. That's really cool, it's good to see. I appreciate all the support. I offer guitar restringing, as you can probably tell, and it costs £10 plus the cost of whatever set of strings you want on it. It doesn't matter what guitar it is, Floyd Rose, hardtail, acoustic, electric, bass, whatever really. Just send me a message on Facebook and I'll do what I can. Cheers to everyone, thank you very much, see you next time.